Sex homework. Sex homework? We we don't want homework. What is this? What is this video? Today I'm talking all about giving your submissive sex homework in order to help them grow, improve their dynamic, and just have a lot of little sexy fun along the way. I'm Brandon the Dom, and let's go ahead and get right into it. So sex homework is basically a little task that you can give your submissive in order to help them grow in some capacity. If you guys have read any of my articles, you kind of know my philosophy around Dom sub dynamics, where when we give out rules or we give out tasks, it's not to just have the task or have the rule for the sake of having it, because that's what dominants are supposed to do. Rather, the rule's in place because it's helping the submissive and you to grow towards some sort of goal that you guys have set together. In my view, dominance is about leadership. So you're leading your submissive somewhere, and by having them do this little task, it's going to help them get to that goal. Sex homework is also really nice if you're trying to train them in some way. So maybe training them sexually or training them to do some specific routine or ritual for you. As well as sex homework is great if you guys spend a lot of time apart. You can still kind of play with that DS dynamic while you guys are away from each other. And these little pieces of homework can be a nice way for her to be reminded of you. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier why we're assigning sex homework as a way to help our submissive grow. And that's really the main benefit of it. Because submission actually has this powerful, unique part of it that is around personal development. It doesn't have to be. You guys could just have DS dynamics that are entirely fun. However, I'm very large into personal development. If you're watching this channel, you are also very large into the personal development. And submission is a fantastic way. And the reason being is because submission, specifically when you have rules, protocols, and tasks like this, allows for behavioral conditioning. And this is basically creating behaviors in your sub that are predictable and will happen more often because you reward them when they're coming up, or you're punishing them if you're trying to correct behavior. So every time you assign sex homework and your submissive does it and you give a reward, you're basically conditioning your sub to do as you like and to perform the tasks that you want them to do. Now, obviously, this could be used to be a tyrant and be a bad person and manipulate your sub if you're training them to do things they don't want to do. However, again, if you've read my essential behaviors for good dominance, you would basically know that we are doing this in service of both of us. This is something that they wanted. This is something that they consented to. And so when we're doing this conditioning, we're helping them to reach their own goals. And in that way, why not use our brain superpowers in order to help us actually reach what we want? So let's dive into how we can assign sex homework for our partner. Step one should be pretty obvious by now, but you need to understand what your goals are and what your partner's goals are. So one of the essential behaviors of a good dominant is setting a vision for the dynamic. And during that time of setting a vision, you're talking with your submissive. What do you want our dynamic to look like? Who do you want to grow into as a person? Where do we want to be later on in our relationship? And you guys are basically creating a vision for that and setting goals to reach that vision. So that's step one. Step two is to give the tasks to reach that goal in the form of systems, not actually a goal. See, usually when people set goals, they often have some sort of outcome in mind. Let's say getting a new job this year. But what would actually be more beneficial is creating a system to reach that goal. Because if you just have the goal of, I want a new job this year, you have no idea how you're actually going to reach that. I mean, you may have some sort of idea, but if you can create a system, when you create the system, it has the directions right in the system of what you need to do. So for example, if we're trying to reach the goal of getting a new job this year, a system would be applying to 3 positions each week. Now, this is much more helpful because when each week rolls around, you know exactly what you need to be doing. You're applying to 3 positions. And eventually, one of those applications is going to get you a job. So you can see how it reaches your goal. So basically, a system is you do X number of things, Y amount of times. You work out for 60 minutes, 3 times a week, something like that. Giving sex homework in this sort of way gives your submissive clear directions of what they need to be doing, which they love. Now, not every task can be assigned like this because sometimes it's like a one-off thing, which I'm going to give some examples here in the future of both. So anytime that you can set it this way, I recommend it, but if you can't, that's okay too. Right. Step 3 is setting a deadline. I mean, let's not slack off here. Let's tell our submissive when we want this task to be done. Otherwise, they're going to be like everyone else and just put it off and maybe not get it done. And then they're going to be sad because they didn't get it done, and you're going to be disappointed. And if you've set up some sort of punishments, which we'll talk about here in a second, you may have to deliver one of those, even though it was actually your fault for not setting a deadline for it. And step 4, which is the important part to this behavioral conditioning, is setting up rewards and punishments. Now, some things to keep in mind when you're setting up rewards and punishment is, first, your submissive should consent to whatever would be a reward or whatever would be a punishment. You should also keep in mind what the limits of your dynamic are. So if you are only doing this in the bedroom, well, then you can't really be setting rewards and punishments for something outside the bedroom. However, if you're in a 24/7 dynamic, obviously you have more wiggle room of when and what could be a reward or punishment. And this actually leads a little bit into my second point, which is the rewards and punishments should be very specific to your submissive. Yes, you could go online and find a list of rewards and punishments, and I even have some examples in the article that I wrote around sex homework. However, some of those may not be the best for your submissive. For example, if your submissive is a pain slut, delivering some spankings or some sort of impact play is not going to be the best for them. That's going to be a reward. What I find easiest to do is just ask my sub, basically, what would be most rewarding for you and what would be an appropriate punishment for you. And they usually have a list of things that really motivates them, and then have a list of things that would really deter them. And I also find just regularly in life, if you ask somebody a way that they should be reprimanded or, make up for something that they made a mistake on, their consciousness is going to basically say, hey, I messed up here. This should be our reward. And this should be our punishment. And they always come up with something better than I would have come up with. And the last thing I want you to keep in mind with rewards and punishment is anytime you label an act a reward and anytime you label an act a punishment, it's going to change the way your submissive thinks about those acts. So if something's labeled as a reward, they're going to label it as good or positive in their mind. And if you label it as a punishment, they're going to label it as bad or negative in their mind. Now, that may never be a problem. However, let's say you use something like cold showers as a punishment. Well, cold showers are actually really great for your health. And if you've been in the biohacking scene or done anything healthy, you've probably seen cold showers or cold plunges come up. And it's actually a good thing for you to be doing. So if your submissive all of a sudden has a goal around health and they want to be doing cold showers, but you've been using it as a punishment, well, then it's going to be more difficult for them to actually want to do the cold showers because now they already have this association in their head that it's negative. So again, keep that in mind. This is again why I usually go back to what would be rewarding and punishing for them and asking them directly. So here on the screen, you can see some examples of rewards for completing sex homework and some examples for punishments for not completing it or correcting their behavior. So some rewards might be praise and affection, certain naughty texts if they like that, sexual gratification, receiving your cum in their favorite way, special dates, favorite types of play, massage, or gaining some sort of privileges in the dynamic that they didn't previously have. Some example punishments might be lecturing, cold shower. Remember what I said about cold showers, but for someone that's never going to do that anyways, this still may be a good punishment. A hard spanking with a paddle or crop with no warm up, or no masturbating for a week, denied orgasms, denied favorite sexual acts, no touching of you, chores with cuffed ankles or wrists, so just making it more difficult for them to do. Grounded, so if you guys have a 24/7 dynamic, this may be a good one, or loss of privileges in the dynamic. All right, now I'm going to run through some examples of sex homework tasks that you could be assigning, and I've broken them down into different categories. So depending on what your submissive's goal is, one of these tasks may be better than the other. And as I go through these, just remember, these are examples. So I just gave a few for each category, but it's way better if you come up something specific to your guys' dynamic and your guys' goals. But this should help you start brainstorming and get started. The first category I want to talk about is vanilla goals. So just because we are in BDSM, we have a DS dynamic and having a bunch of fun, sexy time, doesn't mean we can't use the power of behavioral conditioning in order to reach some of our other goals in life. And this is something that I particularly like about DS, is helping my submissive to become better in the bedroom, but also outside of the bedroom in her everyday life. Now, the way that these vanilla goals become sex homework is in the way that you frame it and the rewards that you set up around it. So for example, her submissive might have the goal of doing yoga or gaining more flexibility. And you could turn yoga in from a regular everyday vanilla thing into having her do naked yoga every day and sending you a picture as part of her sex homework. So what are some other examples of this? You can have her work out at the gym 3 times a week and send you a photo of her sweaty cleavage. I don't know why, but something out in sweat on cleavage is just wonderful. You can have her apply to 3 jobs this week, and for each completed application, she's allowed 1 orgasm. And you could have her practice her Spanish for 30 minutes each day, and afterwards send her a voice note in Spanish of one of her favorite fantasies. So again, these are just examples of random goals they may be working on, trying to get better with their fitness. You're their witness. Applying to jobs, as we were talking about, and setting up systems, and maybe practicing Spanish or learning some sort of skill. All right, let's talk about sex homework for improving sexual skills. So one of the benefits of being in a DS relationship is you get to train your submissive to please you in any way that you would like and exactly how you would like. However, sometimes this means they need to up their skills around that and learn how you want to be pleased. And you can actually assign sex homework tasks, especially when they're away from you, for them to practice. So some examples of this would be to complete 1 lesson in a sex course each week. And I highly, highly recommend the platform Beducated. They have a ton of different sex courses, from very vanilla stuff to your basics to all the way to very kinky things. I'll have a link for that below. Disclaimer, it's an affiliate link. However, if you guys use it, I am subscribed to Beducated. I use it all the time. I think it's a wonderful platform to learn on. Another example could be reading 1 chapter in The Erotic Mind each week. So The Erotic Mind basically helps you understand your own erotic psychology. And I talked about this in the 3 tools to discover your turn-ons. This being part of one of the books that you can use to help with erotic journaling. So figuring out what your erotic fantasies are, what the trigger is in there, what feeling you want to have around that, and what other activities may be associated with that. So this will help her to understand her own psychology. And then another example could be learning the risks of rope bondage on the Dutchie. And the Dutchie is a website that basically has a bunch of shibari and rope ties that you can learn, and you can learn safety and things like that. All right, let's talk about sex homework for sexual training. So this is a little different. Before, we talked about improving their sexual skills, so they need to learn how to do it. And then sexual training is them practicing how to do it, basically. So some examples of this could be anal training or deep throat training. You could also have them practice sensate focus every time they masturbate. So sensate focus is learning to basically gain awareness of pleasure all over your body. And this is obviously a very good thing, because if you can get them out of their head and their thoughts and into their body, they're going to enjoy it more. They are probably going to reach that subspace, and they're more likely to orgasm. All good things. Or you could have her, each time she masturbates, do so with a dildo in her mouth. And this is basically training her to get an oral fixation or kind of link orgasms to having something in her mouth, so that eventually you could be able to put your dick in her mouth and she may be able to orgasm from that. All right, let's talk about sex homework for self-awareness. I really like helping my submissives to understand themselves and their own erotic landscape in their mind. So some of the examples here are to help her do that. So she could spend 15 minutes each day understanding her desires, an erotic journal. I talked about that earlier. He could complete one of the kink tests, like BDSM test or similar quizzes, and send you the results. So this is kind of just giving you an insight into her as well. And she could also complete a sex menu and send it to you. And a sex menu is basically a huge list of sexual activities, and she can rate how much she would like to do that or not do it, if it's a hard boundary, and then write notes next to that about what that activity would look like to her, or if there's any specific limits or something around that activity. I have a resource on my website of 350 sex acts that you can do, sex and kink and BDSM acts. So that's totally free. Just go to my website and go to the resources tab and you'll find it. I'll also leave a link down in the description for the sex menu. Okay, now let's talk about sex homework for self-care. Obviously, submissives want to please you and want to live up to your expectations. And because you're holding expectations for them, it's very hard for them to live up to those sometimes, and they often beat up on themselves. Particularly women, they beat up on themselves a lot around their beauty, around how they look, if they're attractive enough for you. So making some sex homework for self-care, for helping her to reframe those beliefs, see herself in a positive light, is very, very helpful. So some examples of this could be using body safe markers, write positive affirmations like beautiful on the body parts you're most self-conscious about. Have them take a photo, and then every time that they're feeling self-conscious about their body, about their self-image, have them open up their phone and look at that photo with all those, beautiful markings on their body. So this is kind of taking the degradation of writing something very degrading on their body and flipping it on its head for a positive self-image. You can have them masturbate in front of a mirror with a full view of themselves and their vulva. So this is getting a better association with how beautiful their body is, their self-image, and specifically their vulva, because they often are very self-conscious about that as well. You can have them write a list of 25 things they like about themselves, and then have them keep that in their phone. And every time they're being very self-conscious, have them pull that up and start reading some of the list. And you could have this as an ongoing task. So if you're trying to help them reframe their negative beliefs and you hear them say something that's degrading to themselves or something negative about themselves, have it be a task where right then they pull up their phone and they add one more positive thing to that list. And then they'll be reading through that and they'll keep adding it. And eventually they'll have this huge list of positive things that they really like about themselves. And another example is pretend that I'm there to care for you and do the tasks I would do for you for yourself. So having them give themselves a little love and self-appreciation. All right, now let's talk about sex homework for foreplay. So especially if you guys are separated, these can be little tasks for them to do the day of before they see you, or maybe, a night before, or a couple nights before, in order to get them really ramped up, hot and heavy, so that when they open the door and they come in, they're ready to rip clothes off. So some examples of this are between now and the next time we see each other, have her send you one new nude photo a day in a new pose, new creation, or some creative way. I like saying that because it gets them into this kind of creative mindset rather than just sending you the regular nudes. Regular nudes are fine, but I'm artistic and also like to shoot boudoir photography. So I like a little spice to my pictures. You can have them wear a butt plug in public before they see you. And you can, one that I particularly like is starting a couple nights before they actually see you, to have them edge themselves to orgasm, but not actually orgasming. And so that when they get to me, they're so ready to orgasm. They're just so pent up. I kind of like that feral desire energy that they have. All right, let's talk about sex homework in order to help them get into a deeper submissive headspace. This one's particularly good if you guys are apart and they still want to experience that submissiveness, to be kind of swimming in that sub headspace, as well as to feel connected to you in some way and still experiencing that power exchange. This can also be good for submissives that kind of struggle in surrendering or relinquishing that power. You can have them do some of these tasks before they come over. And then by the time they come over, they're kind of already in that subby headspace. It'll be a little easier for them to surrender. So some examples of this is to have them meditate for 20 minutes a day in a kneeling or similar slave position. So have them in a slave or submissive position, meditating the entire time. You can have them wear their day collar every day when they go out in public, and you can have them not wear their panties all day before seeing you. So all of these things are getting them a little bit submissive. You've told them to do this. They're kind of feeling that dynamic, even though that they're on their own. And finally, let's talk about sex homework to make your life as the dom a little easier. Anytime that you can tell your submissive exactly what you want in order to make your life easier, it makes everybody's life easier and is so much better. So some examples of this are to have her write a list of 5 scene ideas that she would love to do next and send them to you. You can also have her write a sexual bucket list of all the different things that she would like to try. And this makes it way easier on your end because now you have a list of things that you know she wants to do. So if you don't have anything particularly that's like, I want to do this, you can pick one of those things, or you can pick one of those things and kind of twist it around into a way that would be super pleasurable for you as well, which you should be doing anyways. And now you both are excited and have plenty of ideas to do in the bedroom. You can have her send you 3 outfits that she finds herself being very sexy in, and then you choose one. Again, this makes your life a little easier because you don't have to tell her exactly everything that she wears, and maybe she doesn't particularly like those things. However, if she likes those things and she feels sexy in it, well, then when she comes over, she's going to, have that sexy energy more, and you still got to choose among the things. And one last example is you could have her clean your space while naked and send you a photo of her doing so. So again, this works pretty well if you're in a 24/7 dynamic, or, you guys are on vacation or something together and sharing the space. So those are some examples that you can do in order to create sex homework tasks for your subs in order to reach whatever goals that you have in your guys' dynamic. Now, if improving your dynamic is something that you would really like to do and you just need some more help in kind of defining your own dominance or figuring out what dominance is to you, or you have a submissive that needs help surrendering and you guys want to work at this as a couple, I offer one-on-one coaching and one-on-two coaching, and you can use the link below in the description to schedule the first session, which is free, in order to make sure that we're a good fit for each other. And I really understand what your guys' goals are. So I hope to see you on a call, and thank you so much for your time and attention.